Queen Elizabeth I, often referred to as the Virgin Queen or the Gloriana, is widely regarded as one of the greatest monarchs in English history. Her reign, from 1558 to 1603, known as the Elizabethan era, marked a period of unparalleled cultural flourishing, maritime exploration, and political consolidation. Elizabeth I succeeded her sister Mary I, a Catholic monarch, and was faced with the task of uniting a deeply divided kingdom. Her ability to navigate the religious, political, and diplomatic challenges of her time laid the foundation for the stability and prosperity of England in the late 16th century. Elizabeth I's reign also saw the final defeat of the Spanish Armada in 1588, which cemented England's position as a rising power in Europe. Her reign became synonymous with the Renaissance in England, as literature, art, music, and drama flourished under her patronage. Moreover, Elizabeth's political acumen and diplomatic finesse ensured her survival in a volatile environment, where threats to her throne were numerous, both from within and abroad. Elizabeth was born on September 7, 1533, to King Henry VIII and his second wife, Anne Boleyn. Her birth was highly anticipated, as Henry had hoped for a male heir to secure the Tudor dynasty. However, the birth of a daughter was seen as a disappointment, especially given the political and religious turmoil that followed Anne's marriage to Henry VIII. In fact, Elizabeth's mother, Anne, was executed in 1536 on charges of adultery, incest, and treason, leading to Elizabeth being declared illegitimate and removed from the line of succession. This left her in a precarious position, particularly as Henry VIII's marital ventures and the establishment of the Church of England destabilized the monarchy. Despite these setbacks, Elizabeth was highly educated and trained in classical languages, literature, and philosophy, a testament to her intellectual capabilities. She emerged as a clever and resourceful individual, gaining a reputation for her wit, rhetoric, and political insight. During the reign of her brother, Edward VI, she largely stayed out of the political limelight, but she was deeply influenced by the religious tensions of the time. Following Edward's death in 1553, Elizabeth's Catholic half-sister, Mary I, assumed the throne. Mary's reign, marked by her efforts to restore Catholicism and the infamous Marian persecutions, was deeply unpopular among English Protestants. Elizabeth's path to the throne was fraught with danger. When Mary died in 1558, Elizabeth ascended to the throne at the age of 25. Though the religious turmoil of the past decades had left England fractured and divided, Elizabeth's return to the throne marked the beginning of a new era. Upon Elizabeth's ascension to the throne, England was deeply divided along religious lines. Mary I's efforts to re-establish Catholicism had failed to bring long-term stability, and many Protestants feared that the return of Catholicism under another monarch would signal further persecutions. Elizabeth was a Protestant, but she also understood the delicate balance required to manage religious tensions in her kingdom. One of the first major challenges that Elizabeth faced was the establishment of a religious settlement. In 1559, she introduced the Act of Supremacy and the Act of Uniformity, which re-established the Church of England and made Protestantism the official religion of the country. The Act of Supremacy declared Elizabeth as the supreme governor of the Church of England, an act that rejected papal authority over the English Church. The Act of Uniformity required all English citizens to attend Anglican services and abide by a standardized liturgy. The acts sought to balance Protestant and Catholic interests, But this middle path left many dissatisfied. Catholics in England saw Elizabeth's religious policies as a threat, and some of her Protestant supporters considered her settlement insufficiently reformed. Elizabeth's religious policies led to tensions both domestically and abroad. Catholic powers, such as Spain and France, saw Elizabeth's reign as a challenge to papal authority. Moreover, Catholic plots to remove Elizabeth from the throne were frequent. The most notable of these was the Ridolfi plot in 1571, a Catholic conspiracy to assassinate Elizabeth and place her Catholic cousin, Mary, Queen of Scots, on the throne. Elizabeth's refusal to marry and produce an heir also added to the political instability, as many saw her unmarried status as a weakness. Furthermore, Catholic plots like the Babington plot, 1586, further exacerbated Elizabeth's insecurity, leading her to order the execution of Mary, Queen of Scots, in 1587. Elizabeth's ability to deftly navigate these religious conflicts and maintain a generally peaceful reign for most of her time on the throne is a testament to her political acumen. By keeping the Protestant Church of England in power while tolerating some Catholic practices, she managed to avoid the widespread religious wars that plagued much of Europe during this period. One of the key foreign challenges of Elizabeth's reign came from Spain, a Catholic superpower under King Philip II. The relationship between Elizabeth and Philip II was complicated by a series of political and religious factors. Philip had been married to Elizabeth's sister, Mary I, but after Mary's death, he sought to marry Elizabeth and strengthen his ties to England. However, Elizabeth refused, and Philip turned his attention elsewhere. The tension between Catholic Spain and Protestant England reached its peak in the late 16th century, particularly over English support for the Dutch revolt. The Dutch provinces, which were under Spanish control, had revolted against Spanish rule, and Elizabeth supported the Dutch Protestants against the Spanish Catholic forces. This support angered Philip II, who saw England's interference in the Dutch conflict as an affront to Spanish authority. In 1588, Philip II launched the Spanish Armada, a massive fleet of ships intended to invade England and restore Catholicism. The Spanish Armada was, however, met with fierce resistance. Elizabeth, displaying remarkable leadership and resolve, oversaw the English Navy's efforts to repel the Armada. The English fleet, though smaller, employed innovative tactics, and the favorable winds helped them defeat the Spanish. The defeat of the Armada was a turning point in European history, marking the decline of Spanish power and the rise of England as a maritime and colonial power. The victory over the Armada made Elizabeth a national heroine, and it solidified her place in history as one of England's greatest monarchs. However, despite this triumph, the defeat of the Armada did not mark the end of the Anglo-Spanish conflict. The two nations continued to skirmish in the Caribbean and along the European continent, but England had established itself as a formidable naval power. Elizabeth also saw a remarkable period of cultural achievement that would come to be known as the Elizabethan Age. The Queen was a patron of the arts and intellectual life, and under her reign, England experienced a golden age of literature, music, and the visual arts. The flourishing of the arts during this period was in part due to Elizabeth's support of artists and playwrights. Perhaps the most famous cultural figure of this period was William Shakespeare, whose works continue to be performed and studied worldwide. Shakespeare's plays, including Hamlet, Macbeth, Romeo and Juliet, and A Midsummer Night's Dream, captured the complexity of the human experience and reflected the values and anxieties of Elizabethan England. Shakespeare's contemporaries, such as Christopher Marlowe and Ben Jonson also produced works that reflected the richness of the period. The Elizabethan era was not only defined by literature, but also by developments in the arts, including music and visual art. The English madrigal, a form of vocal music, became popular during Elizabeth's reign, and composers such as William Byrd and Thomas Tallis contributed significantly to England's musical legacy. Elizabeth's patronage of the arts helped to create an atmosphere of cultural pride and intellectual achievement. The monarch's own image as a powerful and almost divine figure was carefully crafted, and she became a symbol of English strength and unity. Portraits of Elizabeth, such as the famous rainbow portrait, portrayed her as an ageless, divine ruler who commanded loyalty and respect. This image, known as the Virgin Queen, helped to secure her political power and enhance her authority. Elizabeth's reign ended with her death on March 24, 1603, after a long and successful rule. She was succeeded by her cousin, James VI of Scotland, who became James I of England, marking the union of the crowns of England and Scotland. Elizabeth's death marked the end of the Tudor dynasty, but her legacy lived on. Elizabeth left a unified England, one that had successfully navigated the religious turmoil that had plagued the kingdom for decades. Her reign established Protestantism as the dominant religion in England, and her victory over the Spanish Armada cemented England's position as a rising power in Europe. Elizabeth's reign also laid the foundation for the English Renaissance, with cultural achievements that would influence generations to come.